Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Thank you for joining me for a very different podcast today. Just let me know that you can hear me first before I continue. Hope everyone is good. Okay, you hear me. Fantastic. So just a reminder, this is a topical podcast that is just going to be about this particular issue and this particular story. We're not going to cover any other royal news. I will do a second podcast today later on in the day. But I thought this was a very interesting one to cover in light of the phone hacking scandal, and just to showcase the extent to which these pirates with press cards, because we're not going to call them journalists, pirates with press cards, the extent to which they were willing to go to get a story, the ruthlessness of these people. And it just begs the question, why did more people not go to jail, get fined, and really just be held accountable for their actions? And I think it's also a reminder that this phone hacking case, while everyone involved and everyone who is a victim, regardless of how rich or royal they are, how it impacted all of them, that the majority of the victims were everyday individuals like Millie Dollar and her family. And so I wanted to read out two articles today and take a little bit of a deep dive into what these pirates with press cards did and the after effects of them phone hacking Millie Dowler's phone, how that impacted on the case and also on the police investigation. Now, mind you, after the main Leveson inquiry, so Leveson 1 was meant to focus on just phone hacking overall. And then there was meant to be a Leveson 2 inquiry, which was meant to focus on the ill practices of the police with the press. Now, Leveson 2 got cancelled by the Tory government. And my only guess is that perhaps there were things that they just did not want to come out. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of police corruption and people get paid off, people get silenced. So Leveson 2 was cancelled. But nonetheless, let's get on with what happened in Millie Dowler's case. So Millie Dollar was she was a 13-year-old girl who went missing in 2002. It was 2002. It was later then found that she had indeed been abducted and assaulted, and uh, um, the perpetrator was found, but unfortunately, Millie's life was also taken in the incident, and he is currently serving multiple sentences, not just for what happened to Millie, but he also had other victims. But following what happened to Millie, it then came out that her phone was actually hacked. Not only was her phone hacked, but it later came out that the News of the World deleted voicemails from her phone. So here's a very detailed article from The Guardian that looked into this. So the News of the World illegally targeted the missing schoolgirl Millie Dollar and her family in March 2002, interfering with police inquiries into her disappearance, an investigation by The Guardian established. Scotland Yard is investigating the episode, which is likely to put new pressure on the editor of the paper, Rebekah Brooks, now Rupert Murdoch's chief executive in the UK, and the then editor, Andrew Coulson, who resigned in January as the Prime Minister's media advisor. So despite being involved in phone hacking, Andy Coulson was still put up to be the Prime Minister's media advisor. Rebekah Brooks, by the way, was one of the editors of the News of the World, and Harry actually talks about her in his book Spare. He was reportedly obsessed with her. With Harry, and wrote false articles about Harry during her time at the paper. But back to Millie. The Dowlers family lawyer, Mark Lewis, issued a statement. By the way, this article was published back in 2011. This afternoon issued a statement describing the News of the World's activities as heinous and despicable, and said this afternoon the Dowler family was now pursuing a damages claim against the News of the World. Millie Dollar disappeared at the age of 13 on her way home on March 2002. Detectives from Scotland Yard's new inquiry into the phone hacking Operation Weeting are believed to have found evidence of the targeting of the Dowlers and a collection of 11,000 pages of notes kept by Glenn Moncler, the private investigator, jailed for phone hacking on behalf of the News of the World. So it's interesting that There were private investigators that were jailed, but the people who hired them, really no repercussions for them. In the last 4 weeks, the Met Office have approached the Surrey police and taken formal statements from some of those involved in the original inquiry who were concerned about the News of the World journalists' interceptions and their deletions of voice messages of Millie Dollar. The messages were deleted by journalists in the first few weeks after Millie's disappearance in order to free up space for more messages. Let me read that again. The messages were deleted by journalists in the first few days after Millie's disappearance in order to free up space for more messages. As a result, friends and relatives of Millie concluded wrongly that she might still be alive. And police, due to the deleted messages, feared that evidence may have been destroyed. So her friends and family are sitting here thinking maybe there's still a chance that she's alive. And she wasn't. It was journalists at the News of the World deleting the messages. What's even more crazy is the fact that the journalists were able to get access to her phone. And police are still kind of mulling around trying to figure out what's going on. That's quite shocking. Anyway, the Guardian investigation has shown that within a very short time of Millie vanishing, News of the World journalists reacted by engaging in what was standard practice at their newsroom. They hired private investigators to get them a story. The first step was simple, albeit illegal. Paperwork seen by The Guardian reveals that they paid a Hampshire private investigator called Steve Whittemore to obtain the home addresses and, where necessary, ex-directory phone numbers for any families called Dowler in the Walton area. The 3 addresses Whittemore found could be obtained lawfully on the electoral register. The 2 ex-directory numbers, however, were blagged illegally from British Telecom, that's BT, from their confidential records by one of Whittemore's associates, John Gunning, who works from a base in Wiltshire. One of the ex-directory numbers was attributed by Whittemore to Millie's family home. Then, with the help of its own full-time private investigator, Glenn McClare, the News of the World started illegally intercepting mobile phone messages. Scotland Yard is now investigating evidence that the paper hacked directly into the voicemail of the missing girl's own phone. As her friends and parents called and left messages imploring Millie to get in touch with them, the News of the World was listening and recording every private word. I mean, y'all, when Harry says that conquering the press is his life's mission, this is what he's talking about. But the journalists at the News of the World then encountered a problem. Millie's voicemail box filled up and would accept no more messages. Apparently, thirsty for more information from the voicemails, the paper intervened and deleted the messages that had been left in the first few days after her disappearance. According to one source, this had a devastating effect. When her friends and family called again and discovered that her voicemail had been cleared, they concluded that this must have been done by Millie herself, and therefore that she must still be alive, but she was not. The interference created false hope and extra agony for those who were misled by it. The Dowler family then granted an exclusive interview to the News of the World, in which they talked about their hope, quite unaware that they had been falsely kindled by the newspaper's own intervention. Sally Dowler told the paper, "If Millie walked through the door, I don't think we'd be able to speak. We'd just weep tears of joy and give her a great big hug." The deletion of messages also caused difficulties for the police by confusing the picture when they had few leads to pursue. It also potentially destroyed valuable evidence. According to one senior source familiar with the Surrey police investigation, it can happen with adoption murders that the perpetrator will leave messages asking the missing person to get in touch as part of their efforts at concealment. We need those messages as evidence. Anybody who destroys that evidence is seriously interfering with the course of a police investigation. So now even the police are confused. The paper made little effort to conceal the hacking from its readers. On the 14th of April 2002, it published a story about a woman allegedly pretending to be Millie Dollar who had applied for a job with a recruitment agency. It is thought the hoaxer even gave the agency Millie's real mobile number. The agency used the number to contact Millie when a job when a job vacancy arose and left a message on her voicemail. It was on March 27th, 6 days after Millie went missing, that the employment agency appears to have phoned her mobile. The newspaper also made no effort to conceal its activity from Surrey police. After it had hacked the message from the recruitment agency on Millie's phone, the paper informed police about it. It was Surrey detectives who established that the call was not intended for Millie Dowler. At the time, Surrey police suspected that phones belonging to detectives and to Millie's parents were also being targeted. One of those who was involved in the original inquiry said, "We arranged landline calls, we didn't trust our mobiles." However, they took no action against News of the World, partly because their main focus was to find the missing schoolgirl, and partly because this was only one example of tabloid misbehavior. As one source close to the inquiry put it, there was a hell of a lot of dirty stuff going on. Two earlier Yard inquiries had failed to investigate the relevant notes on McClare's logs. In a statement, the family's lawyer said the Dowlers were distressed at the revelation. It is distress heaped upon tragedy to learn that the News of the World had no humanity at such a terrible time. The fact that they were prepared to act in such a heinous way that could have jeopardized police investigation and given them false hope is despicable. And there you have it. I will also post in the chat a follow-up article that was done in, I think it's when was it? This was done by Byline Investigates. Give me a sec, folks. My computer is acting a bit funny. Yeah, so this is from 2020 actually, so quite recent. But they're basically in this article, they're calling for a Leveson 2 inquiry again, because the first one should have never been cancelled. So if you want to go read about that in a bit more detail, that's on Byline Investigates, who have been fantastic when it comes to phone hacking and covering that. You can go and read about that. But I wanted to make another video like this, similar to the one where I talked about the press hacking victims of the 7/7 attacks in London, just to show the scale of who they were targeting. Because I think this is really important to have this information more widely spread, because the tabloid press keep painting this whole phone hacking case as a disgruntled royal who's angry about what the press did to him. Mind you, he has absolutely every right to be angry about what the press did to him. But I think maybe if people realize the extent to which that they were also targeting ordinary people, then the narrative can start to change. So rest in peace to Millie, and thank goodness her perpetrator is behind bars. So that was all for this. I'll go through any of your comments and then I will wrap things up. Thank you, as always, for coming and supporting and listening. Right. Yeah, Teslin, these people are ruthless and relentless. I mean, a young schoolgirl goes missing. You know that there's probably a good chance that she has been abducted, unalived, and goodness knows what else. And the first thing you think to do is hack her phone. Mm-mm. I mean, just pure evil. And the fact that, William decides to then just take payment from Murdoch. It's just layers on layers of corruption. Because this is his chance. This is really his chance, William, to act like a king if he wanted to. But his brother, his spare, is acting more like a king than he is. Yeah, clear interference. They should have all been charged. And also, just to say, because Piers Morgan is often, or people often say, oh, he's the one who hacked Millie Dollar's phone. I don't believe that Piers Morgan was actually at the paper when Millie Dollar's phone was hacked. However, he certainly encouraged a culture that allowed this to happen. And that culture spread throughout the news space in the UK and across Fleet Street. And I'm hoping that if Harry wins his case, there can be major calls for a Leveson Inquiry because it's needed. Cynthia, you said, I remember when a PI apologized to Meghan for retrieving her private information from the data in California. Yeah. But damage done, right? Damage is done. Brutus William is the Prince of Darkness. Oh, I mean, listen, I'm a spiritual person. I'm a praying person. I believe no matter what wrong you've done, and not necessarily because you're looking for forgiveness, but you always have the chance to turn things around and just do the right thing. At any point, William, Kate, anybody in the royal institution that wants salvation on Judgment Day can turn around and say, I know what happened. This is what happened. This is what I did. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll forgive you. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll like you. But take that weight off your shoulders and be the better person and just tell the truth. I will have it. If William ever came out and just admitted to everything, all the parts that he's played in the vitriol levied against his brother and his wife, no, I'm not necessarily going to like him, but I will have at least a shred of respect for him. And there's always time to do that. There's always a good time to just tell the truth. I'm not holding my breath for it, though. Yeah, and everything that's in the dark will come to light. No one gets away with it. The conscience does haunt. But you can be the light and tell the truth. Rhonda, this family was completely betrayed by those in charge. How can those involved sleep at night? Yeah. And how can anyone at this point, knowing what they were willing to do to Millie's family, how does anybody pick up a tabloid newspaper at this point? How? Anywho, that's all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do share this around and, let people know that, listen, this isn't just a celebrity trial or royal trial. This is a trial for our whole country. And the press does need to be held accountable. And we most definitely do need another inquiry to look at phone hacking and also look at the police's conduct during all of this. Thank you as always, everybody. See you later. Ciao.
eyes on me.